Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
F. You're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making.
It is the 30-something movie podcast. This episode is brought to you by the letters A, B, and C. And the number 322, which is probably the number of times the F word was used. In this movie.
At least.
Welcome to Sesame Street. Yeah.
I mean, that was impressive. That was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I've read somewhere that, like, because the actors kind of gave it a name or something, like, or not a name. They renamed the movie. It was one of the things that just noting how foul the language was. Like, all the actors were like realizing it and processing that as well.
Bo, I think you tracked down that little tidbit for us. What do you remember what it was?
Oh, did you?
I did.
Yeah, in the trivia.
Well, that's what you get for paying attention to the thing you worked on, I guess.
That's all right. It was I think it was one of the second things you put down for the trivia.
That sounds right. See, now I gotta go look.
That's all right.
Edit out the blank spot. I'm sorry. I kind of
we don't edit here. What are you talking about?
They referred to the film as Death of an Effing Salesman. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So yes, just you might say they had a
total
plethora.
Death of a Salesman vibes.
Yeah. So this one, we haven't told you yet what the movie is, but it's Glengarry Glen Ross. So we spoil freely here, so just this is your only warning, really. Visit our website, 30podcast.com, where you can leave a rating, leave a voicemail, become a co-executive producer via Patreon, where you get all kinds of great extra bonus content there, and join the rest of our Patreon co-executive producers. Thank you so much, as always, to those who join us there and help the show out financially and keep things running. But so anybody wants to head on over there and throw a little bit our way each and every month, you get bonus content there for that, and you get a big old thank you from the bottom of our hearts for helping us out there. And we appreciate each and every one of you and have loved getting to know all of you as well.
Yes.
So as you can hear, I'm joined by a couple of other salesmen this evening. I've got Pat and Bo. Pat, how are you doing?
Great, guys. Hey, everybody. Hey, listeners.
Pat, how many deals have you closed tonight?
0.
Pat, I don't know how you expect to get the car.
I'm not going to be getting the car, man. I'm not going to be getting the car.
Okay. Well, I hope you didn't try to go getting coffee because it's not for you.
Coffee's for closers.
Coffee is for closers.
Yes.
Yep. Bodacious, how are you doing?
I'm well, John.
Good.
I'm pondering whether I'm gonna go out tonight.
Okay. Are you are you pondering what I'm pondering?
Well, yes, of course.
Good. I'm glad somebody is. I don't know what I'm pondering. Well, real quick, before we get started, we have I picked out a couple of different social media updates that we get from time to time, and we had one from Docking Bay 77 Pod. They said, and this was maybe a little bit while back, they said, just finished your Reservoir Dogs episode. So glad you guys liked this movie. I saw it in college on VHS a year after it hit theaters. My best friend made me. I loved it. And then they went on to answer the 3 questions, and our 3 questions from that episode, because it was more than a couple of days ago, so I had to go back and look them up again. Our 3 questions for that episode were, what is your favorite song from the 70s? Because they kept replaying the hits of the 70s radio station. What's your philosophy on tipping? And if you were a cop, would you be willing to go undercover? And so Docking Bay 77 Pod said, 3 questions. Hotel California is the favorite 70s song. Yes, I tip. And yes, I tip. I was a waiter in college. And last answer is, I would be a terrible cop. All right.
Fair.
Now, at the time this episode, I'm trying to think ahead to when this episode, the Glengarry Glen Ross episode, is going to be released. I have a feeling that, let me take a look real fast. I believe this episode should be coming out, are we looking at middle of August? For this one? Yeah, we're probably looking at kind of middle of August for this episode. And at the time this is released, it might still be a week or so away. At the time of recording, later this week, I'm actually joining the Docking Bay 77 pod for a Star Wars trivia contest.
Oh, right on.
So we'll see how well I can remember everything from Star Wars Trivial Pursuit all those years ago. I'm sure it's still up there.
I think you'll be fine.
I probably will be.
I think it's going to be an epic battle.
I think it'll
John.
be okay. I think I'll be okay. And I think the Shirley podcast guys might be moderating. So.
Oh, okay.
So that should be.
There you go.
That should be a good one. Looking forward to it. All right. Do you guys have anything else before we jump into Glengarry Glen? See, here's part of the problem. With a name like Glengarry Glen Ross, and the fact that I have had one adult beverage so far before we started recording, means that I'm not going to be able to say Glengarry Glen Ross every single time.
I don't know how anyone says Glengarry Glen Ross.
I don't know. I'm going to have to
without slowing down.
I'm going to have to slow down
and making it a thing.
I'm going to have to slow down.
The triple GS or something.
Glengarry Glen Ross. There we go. I'm gonna have to treat it like it's the name of a drink. I'll have a Glengarry Glen Ross.
Glenlivet. I mean,
Glenlivet. I'll have a Glenlivet Glen Ross.
There you go. That is okay.
There you go.
Patreon fans, those of you listening, make that drink.
There you go.
Glenlivet Glen Ross. Yeah. I'm not sure what it is.
I'll have a Glenlivet. I'll have a Glenlivet Glen on the rocks. There you go.
There you go.
I have no idea what that is, but it sounds tasty.
It sounds fan-effing-tastic.
That'll be one of our Patreon episodes. Is as we record the episode, we make different versions of what we think that drink is, and then experiment with them.
Mm-hmm. What's the 30-something podcast equivalent to a Quark's Bar episode?
Right.
Friday. I don't.
There you go.
That's awesome.
I don't know. On the 30 podcast, I don't know what we do for a Coco No-No.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get together and make margaritas. I
feel like a cocoon No-No, maybe.
Oh,
all the way
look
back
at you.
All the way back to the 80s. We can have a cocoon No-No.
Look at the big brain on you.
Yeah. I have ideas sometimes. Quick funny story about trying to order an adult beverage is when my son and I were
order a Prairie Fire in Champagne.
Order a Prairie Fire outside of Champagne is the story.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah. Don't do it in. All right. So I love Highwood, but don't do it in Highwood because
no,
they don't know what they're doing.
No,
Other things it's fine, but they didn't quite know what they were doing with that one. No, we stopped at this place because I was like, all right, well, so the state sandwich is the pork tenderloin for Indiana, so we got to stop somewhere and have a pork. Tenderloin.
A pork
tenderloin.
I like me some pork too.
I'm not going to be able to say anything tonight.
Apparently.
And I promise I didn't even have I had one half glass of a margarita and that's it. So
combined with meal from Prepare.
Combined with a long weekend and if I was still on Manure, yeah.
Glen Ross.
Yeah, the Glenlivet, Glen, yeah. So I don't even know. So I always try to order what I apparently have come to find out are the old man drinks nobody knows about.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so I tried to order a rusty nail. So I was like, do you guys know how to make? And so I've just started to order it by saying, do you know how to make a rusty nail? Because if I just try to order it, people look at me funny because all of the bartenders and all of the waiters are 14 years old. So
it's true.
And so I asked, I said, do they know how to make it? He's like, well, I can go back and ask. And I said, okay, I'll give you a quick little heads up here. It is a scotch with drambuie. He's like, okay, I've never heard of that before, so let me go ask if we have it. Fair enough. So he goes back and he asks, and he comes back and he's like, yeah, no, we don't have the stuff to make that. I said, all right, fine, then I'll do the one on the rocks. And I picked one of the scotches that was on the menu. And he comes back and he's like, yeah, we don't have that one. Like, okay, so let me do this one. And he pulls it up on his little iPad and he goes, "Yeah, we don't have that one either."
No Coke Pepsi. Why don't you just tell me what you got?
Why don't you just tell me what's available?
That's right. That's it.
And so then after the third one, he's like, "Yeah, we don't have that one either." I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to stick with a Diet Coke. Let's just go that route and we'll be okay." And to his credit, about 5 to 10 minutes later, he comes back and he goes, "We checked up in the attic and we found some Drambuie. Would you still like the rusty nail?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So
yes, I would.
So I had my drink. I drank my drink, and it was excellent. It was very nice. But
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's a story unrelated to Glenlivet, Glen Ross. I'm just gonna call it that for the. It's easier to say that than the Glengarry. It's easier. It's too many G forces there. So that's what I'm gonna call it from now on. So, all right. Our movie this time around is Glenlivet, Glen Ross. Came out on the 2nd of October, 1992. Rated R for very obvious reasons. Runtime was 1 hour and 40 minutes, directed by James Foley, who did At Close Range and After Dark. Writers were David Mamet was the only writer. He did the play and the screenplay.
This little Mamet guy.
Yeah, he's done a couple things here or there. He did The Untouchables and Hoffa, both movies we have talked about so far. Producers for this one were Jerry Tukovsky and Stanley R. Zupnik, and they both did Dreamscape and Fear City. Music was done by James Newton Howard, who did Major League and Pretty Woman. Cinematography was done by Juan Ruiz Anchia, who did Spartan and Blackthorn. Editor was Howard E. Smith, who did The Abyss and Point Break. Budget was $12.5 million. The box office was $10.7 in North America. Flickmetrics gives it an 81%, and CinemaScore gives it a B-. Starring Al Pacino as Richard Roma. He was in Serpico and The Godfather. Jack Lemmon, who died in 2001, played Shelley Levine. He was in The Apartment and Grumpy Old Men. Alec Baldwin was Blake. He was in Beetlejuice and Working Girl. Alan Arkin was George Aronow. He was in The Rocketeer and Edward Scissorhands. Ed Harris played Dave Moss. He was in Apollo 13 and The Truman Show. Kevin Spacey played John Williamson. He was in The Usual Suspects and L.A. Confidential. Jonathan Pryce was James Link. He was in Tomorrow Never Dies and Game of Thrones. And Bruce Altman played Mr. Spannell. He was in Regarding Henry and The Paper. So some quick trivia here. And thank you again to Bo for tracking down the trivia for us for this episode.
Yeah, man.
He said, well, a couple different things. We already mentioned the one that they named this The Death of an Effing Salesman. What the actors referred to this story as. One of the other ones, Jack Lemmon, said this cast was the greatest acting ensemble he had ever been a part of.
And that's kind of saying something from Jack Lemmon. I mean, he's been around.
Had a storied career. I mean, he's been around a while. So to say this was the best acting ensemble he'd been a part of. This is also director James Foley's and Alec Baldwin's favorite films of their own.
And that's interesting coming from Alec Baldwin, too.
Because he's in it for like a hot second.
I know.
What a great monologue. What a great hot second,
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be there for a minute, let's make it that minute.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's fine because, I mean, you could be like Ray Charles and say like Blues Brothers was your favorite movie.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It was an impactful part. I mean, think of the lines he delivers in the like 8 seconds he's in the movie. And he's got the two lines that even if you haven't seen this movie, you probably know those lines. The coffee is for closers, and the ABC always be closing.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Any kid who saw the Lego Batman
work all the time.
Any kid who has seen the Lego Batman movie knows the always be closing one.
Right.
Right.
They don't get it, but that's not the point.
No.
Alec Baldwin's just pretty amazing, and there's going to be a movie that we're going to review in the next year or two, I think, where he's got a role in it, and he gives a monologue that's like equally like impactful. It's I always get it confused with the one that we did. It's Misery or it's Malice? Which one was the one where
Misery was James Caan.
That's the one where Sonny Corleone ends up in a bed, and then the crazy lady's beating on his ankles.
And not in a good way. Yeah.
And okay, sorry, spoilers. Can we put a spoiler warning? What was that one again?
Misery?
That was Misery.
Yeah.
Malice. Alec Baldwin, he delivers the goods in Malice as well.
Yeah. Yeah, when is I was trying to think. Malice is 93. Yeah, that is next year.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all to say Alec Baldwin. Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. So David Mamet based his original play on his own experience working in a real estate office in the 70s during the time that he was a struggling playwright. He apparently was Kevin Spacey's name, John Williamson. He was that character. He was the office manager who was giving out the sales leads and handling the paperwork and all that stuff. So kind of based on some stuff he dealt with in real life. Bo, I appreciated that you threw this one in here because I was curious about it. I kind of thought about it after watching the movie, how this movie would no way, shape, or form pass the Bechdel test.
No.
For those not aware, the Bechdel test is the test of whether or not there are female characters in the movie and whether they have speaking parts that do not involve talking about a male character, whether they kind of stand alone as their own female characters. And this movie, not so much, because, Bo, you included in here that it was the coat check girl is the only female character to appear.
No secretary at the office, even though they reference a fake one all the time.
Yeah.
Just the coat check girl.
Yeah. So, and then Patrick, I figured you would appreciate this one as well. So the soundtrack's incorporation of Al Jarreau's rendition of Irving Berlin's Blue Skies is an allusion to blue sky laws, which are state regulations intended to prevent fraud in the sales of securities.
Oh, interesting.
So supposedly the term was popularized by a Kansas Supreme Court justice who said he hoped to protect investors from speculative ventures, quote, no more basis than so many feet of blue sky.
Huh. Interesting. Interesting.
And that's knowing how much of a jazz man you are, that's just a fun rendition of the song anyway.
Yeah, it really is.
That was cool.
I'll open this up and play a little bit for us here.
Yeah, man, play a little bit. As I recall, the soundtrack was pretty. Yeah.
Blue sky is smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see. In the morning there's bluebirds singing a song. Nothing but bluebirds from now on. I never saw the sun shining so bright. Never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my, how they fly. Blue days.
And that kind of like the jazzy version of that, kind of picking up the pace a little bit and mirrors that frantic pace of this whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was some pretty awesome stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And another interesting thing, for the kind of the production side of things, when one of the main characters is in a position of power, they are chewing gum. So I did not notice this, so I was kind of interested when you put this in here, Bo, that Al Pacino, when he's kind of mocking Ed Harris's attitude, Levine when he's insulting Williamson, and then Williamson when he's revealing to Levine that one of the deals is no good, that they're not going to buy anything from anybody. In all of those situations, the person in power is chewing gum.
Yeah, that was one of those, as I'm reading it, I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just a little treatment to help set the scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So real quick, here is the kind of the overall synopsis of the movie. When an office full of New York City real estate salesmen is given the news that all but the top two will be fired at the end of the week, the atmosphere begins to heat up. Shelley Levine, who has a sick daughter, does everything in his power to get better leads from his boss, John Williamson, but to no avail. When his coworker, Dave Moss, comes up with a plan to steal the leads, things get complicated for the tough-talking salesman. Here is the trailer, and we're going to be back in just a second.
Let me have your attention for a moment. Put that coffee down. Let's talk about something important. Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. Somebody should stand up and strike back. Somebody should do something to them. Alex is on Earth. Yes.
What can you do?
I gotta tell you, I'm ready to do the Dutch.
I know what I'll do. I'll go out and rob everybody blind and go to Argentina.
You think you're a thief?
We're just talking.
We are?
Yeah, we're just speaking about it.
Speaking about it is an idea. We're not actually talking about it.
No.
It's a robbery.
There's a robbery? No.
And what is it we're so afraid of?
All you need, a little boost.
Tonight is the thing.
So be it.
What happened? What happened?
We had a slight burglary.
Criminals come and they steal the phones. They stole the phones. They stole the. Oh.
You robbed the office.
Oh, sure, I robbed the office. Oh, sure.
You did that?
Will you get out of here?
How can you talk to me that way? Are you talking to me? When I talk to the police, I get nervous. You know who doesn't? Who? Thieves. What's your name?
Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, from the Pulitzer Prize winner, Glengarry Glen Ross.
This is how we keep score, Bubby.
All right. So our major moments in this one, I've got about 5 major moments we're going to touch on. And our first one is Alec Baldwin coming in as the motivational speaker. I will refer to him as here at the beginning here. And he's got his acronyms to help him out with his motivational speaking. As I joked earlier, we have a little bit of a vocabulary lesson a la Sesame Street with the ABC. This is where we get probably, like I said earlier, even if you've never seen this movie before, you've probably heard these couple of lines from the movie when he starts in on the whole ABC thing and the coffee is for closers.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. AIDA. Attention, interest, decision, action. Attention. Do I have your attention? Interest. Are you interested? I know you are, because it's or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? An action. AIDA. Get out there. You got the prospects coming in. You think they came in to get out of the rain? A guy don't walk on the lot lest he wants to buy. They're sitting out there waiting to give you their money. Are you going to take it?
So this in particular, like one of the, it makes me think of, as he's going through and doing his whole acronym thing, of course, I'm going to jump straight to Good Morning Vietnam, and it's making me think of the, excuse me, sir, seeing as how the VP is such a VIP, shouldn't we keep the PC on the QT? Because if it leaks to the VC, he could end up MIA, and then we'd all put on KP.
Indeed.
But I love how that, like, I get to always be closing the ABC, always be closing. And then all of a sudden we move into, like, letters that don't go together.
AID, yeah, the whole thing is, it's almost, there's a term for that, and I'm drawing a blank. Is that a non sequitur?
It might be.
English teacher man.
My English teacher brain is, I had half a margarita. I don't remember what things are anymore.
I need my English teacher here. But yeah, it's totally not anything to do with what he's saying, and now he's at Ida, and you're like, what just happened here?
Right, because gents, I know people don't get like a behind the scenes look at how we make the podcast, but I know I'm giving you guys a motivational speech every time before we record, and I'm like, look, Bo, Pat, Dennis when he shows up in 23 minutes, ABP, always be podcasting, always be podcasting, and the other one is AMSBOTP. Always make several backups of the podcast. Always make several backups of the podcast.
Yes.
And whatever. I don't know. Always edit at the last minute. I don't know what the letters are for that.
Well, and I think I don't want to bog us down too much, John, because I know that this is just the 5 major things, but in the interest of always be podcasting, what it does, and I always find this with plays that become movies and that are well done, there's not going to be a ton of action. There's not going to be a ton of special effects. So what do they rely on? Obviously good writing, and I was going to say dialogue, but that's good writing, the incredible acting performances, and then all those little things, like you mentioned, the gum, or that they have in there, or the various things that the actors will do, which goes into excellent acting.
Yeah.
But all these little pieces that they put in to really help draw you in. And I think that idea of using acronyms, okay, I've never necessarily been in like a sales office, But whenever you're in and there's a presentation and it's like a slick presentation, whether it's positive and motivational or whether it's like this, very aggressive and the opposite, like that really set the tone for me. Like, okay, this guy's like hardcore, high power, he's got his acronyms that he uses and he's kind of got this slick message that he's ready to deliver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
it's kind of like, and I don't want to paint myself into the corner that says, okay, every time someone's using some acronym, it's always going to be a very direct message. But no, I think that's something different. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Focus. Whenever they have those acronyms, you can tell like this guy is high power. He knows his thing. He knows his presentation, and he's really putting it on on display. Right now, the tone of voice and the way he delivered it told you, okay, there's not going to be any discussion, right? But he was definitely there. He was in a power position. He was giving these guys an education. Do you get what I'm saying? And it was just, they really didn't need to do much development. They didn't need to show it, through some kind of action. It was just the dialogue and the way that the words that they give him to say really sets him in that mode, in that role.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the dialogue and it's the little visual cues.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. The other great line is is when Shelley is trying to get some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's kind of like, Shelley's kind of chuckling. He's like, what?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty tense scene. Like this first opening moment is pretty tense because you've got, and like we said, Alec Baldwin, he's in this movie for what, like 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, if you get that. And, he's kind of walking in as like the expert and he's telling all these guys what to do. And then, of course, Ed Harris, his character, David Moss, like starts to give him a little bit of attitude. And he's like, if you're so awesome, what are you doing like slumming it down here with us? And he's like, look, this is why I'm here. This is why I do this. This is what, and I love that scene. He kind of almost gets up in his face a little bit and he's like, you see this watch? And I loved what they did with that one. I actually pulled this one. So this is directly from Glenlivet, Glen Ross.
What's the problem, pal? You, Moss. You're such a hero. You're so rich. How come you're coming down here and waste your time with such a bunch of bums? You see this watch? You see this watch?
This watch was on your daddy's wrist when they were shot down over Hanoi. He was captured, put in a Vietnamese prison
I saw it
camp.
coming.
He knew.
There it was.
Anytime he starts talking about watches.
Yeah,
yeah.
The way your dad looked at it, this watch was your birthright.
Anytime he starts talking about watches.
I always thought that was from a different movie, but it was so great to see that show up in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do get the scene where they make the decision or a couple of them make the decision to steal the leads. They've got these Glengarry Glen Ross leads that are supposed to be solid gold. Like that's what's going to get them over the hump. That's going to help them win the car. And so they kind of make a plan. A couple of them make a plan that they're going to steal these leads. Like they'll make it look like a break-in. They'll steal the phones, do all this other stuff. And they're going to take the leads, and that's how they're going to get a hold of those because John Williamson, Kevin Spacey's character, is keeping them in his office and not sharing them with everybody else. Did you guys ever think any of that was going to work out for them?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Not the way they were. We have seen that this stuff only works when you have a plan like they had in, say, one of the Ocean's movies.
Right.
They did not have a plan here.
No.
These guys had an attempt at a plan.
Yeah.
And the one guy just wanted the other guy to do it, so he had deniability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were not the stellarist of crooks here.
They're like Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. They have 12% of a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think 12% might be generous.
Right.
Yeah. The whole movie was just desperate. It was just desperation was the only vibe I got from it.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That's the whole, like you said, the whole vibe of the movie. And that's what I felt watching this too. I was like, this is, I can imagine that you can watch this movie and be inspired by these guys hustling, like trying to like get their deals closed so they can have some coffee and maybe a car, but just for the game that they all play. I'm sure somebody can watch this and go, man, that is amazing, like what these guys can do and how they can convince people to do this and this and this. I'm watching the whole movie going, man, this is sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's desperation, and like almost every moment is desperation, and whenever a deal is going to fall through, they all get desperate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They all turn on each other.
Yeah, like rats, you know, like rats fighting over the same,
right,
you know, piece of food, or to get out of a flood. It's just yeah.
Well, and we've got the scenes in the movie where Richard Roma, so Al Pacino's character, it doesn't really show up until a little bit later in the movie, and we kind of get the idea that he's the top seller, and we have this whole kind of segment where he's working what I'm going to call the missing link. So Mr. Link he's trying to get him to go through with this deal. He's got a check from him, and there's a whole thing later on in the movie where they talk about, he comes back and he's like, well, you didn't cash the check, did you? Because my wife doesn't really want to do this, and I can't do this, and I'm sorry I'm letting you down. And he's got every single
3
person.
days.
Yeah. Every single person in this is desperate. Like, not only are the salesmen desperate, but even the guy that invested in some of the real estate comes back and he's desperate. He's like, I gotta have the check back. Like, I can't do this. I can't. You almost get the sense that Jonathan Pryce's character, Link, if he doesn't get this check back, he's going to jump out the window.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I absolutely got that vibe from his character. Like, he's in tears. He just, whatever it is that he's paid for this, whatever it is that he's done, it is not going to go well for him if he's at the end of his rope. And if he doesn't get this check back, who knows what's going to happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end, we get Shelley Levine comes in and believes he's got his big break, that he made a big sale, and he is excited because he has not closed anything in quite a while, which is funny because then we find out later on from Roma that Shelley Levine was known as Levine the Machine.
Yeah.
Back in the day, so he was a big seller back in the day.
You sort of get that impression when he's yelling at Kevin Spacey about who was the top for 8 months, blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah.
But the way these guys bluster all the time, you never know if it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not.
Yeah.
You kind of don't trust what any of these guys say is true, because that's kind of what their whole job is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's.
Bo, I also appreciate one of the other quotes that you pulled for us here was the line that I think if I could go back as either a teacher or a parent and I get really frustrated, I think I might start using this one more often.
Will you get out of here? Will you get out of here? Will you? I'm trying to run an office here. Now, will you go to lunch? Go to lunch. Will you go to lunch?
Frankly, nobody's got to tell me twice. You say go to lunch, I'm gone.
Lunch. That's it.
You're not gonna have to say it 3 times. I'll go to lunch and.
No.
Yeah.
I am a fan of lunch. I mean, I
never met a meal I didn't like.
Yeah, lunch good.
Yeah.
Skipping lunch bad.
Oh,
like,
very bad. Very much bad.
You know, why would you do that? I don't know.
It's madness. But a funny line from the movie. Just you can tell, like, he is also desperate. He's just desperate for these guys to just shut up and do their work. And if they can't, just get out of the office for a little bit. Just get out of my face. And so then the final, in the midst of all this, we have the police have come to kind of investigate this robbery. We have an argument between Shelley and between John Williamson, Kevin Spacey's character, and it is revealed what ended up happening to these leads, that Shelley stole them and then sold them to a competitor, and he was splitting the money with one of the other guys. And so it's kind of this whole breakdown of he was desperate. He's got the sick daughter, which he's constantly on the phone, like checking in on her as well throughout this movie. And so that's kind of revealed here at the end. And then you get this kind of bittersweet little moment at the end. It's one of the only times where you see these guys actually working with each other and kind of complementing each other. As Al Pacino's character, Richard Roma, he kind of sits Shelley down for a minute. He sits Levine down and he's like, you were awesome. Like back in the day, Levine the Machine, like you were amazing, and starts to compliment him a little bit and compliment him on this big sale that Shelley was able to close, and then kind of makes this whole plan for, hey, we should kind of team up. We should work together and we should do this, and kind of getting a little plan going. That whole thing that you did when Mr. Link was in here, that was perfect. That was amazing. Somebody with your skills, if you and I work together, we'll be able to do great things. And then you as the viewer know that as soon as Shelley goes into that room with the detectives, it's pretty much over at that point for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no escape.
It's sad because you're seeing he's finally getting the respect he's been craving, and now he's done.
Yeah. And that's where we kind of close out the movie. So are there any other major moments that I missed before we go into our deeper thoughts?
I don't think so.
All right. In that case, HD, always be having deeper thoughts.
And now, deep thought.
Is this the first time you had seen this movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Same here.
It was for me as well. So we get the trifecta.
There it is.
All right. What did you think? Did you like the movie?
Oh, it's fantastic. Like everybody, I knew the main quotes. I knew "always be closing." I knew all of that stuff. What I didn't like, I hadn't done any research on it except when I started to do it for the show. I didn't know it was Mamet. I didn't know any of that, and it's just so good. Just so good. The writing, the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. Bo, you said it all, like my feelings as well. And echoing what you said, for me, it's when it's like a play on screen, you got to rely on the dialogue, the writing, the visual cues to keep you in, and the acting, and to keep you on the edge of your seat. And it really delivers.
So what are some of the things in this movie that work for you? Now that it's the first time you've seen this, what was it in particular? Was it a particular actor? Was it certain lines of dialogue? A particular scene? What do you feel like now that you've seen this, if you were to then share something about this movie with somebody else, what would be one of the most memorable things you'd probably share with someone else if they said, hey, I have a chance to go watch this movie, Glenlivet, Glen Ross. Tell me one thing about it that you really like.
For me, the desperation. I mean, that, like, you just watch this and it's just, you're kind of riding a sinking ship and you just know that. And I mean, I can't necessarily say it is an enjoyable experience. That being said, I mean, you do get that feel when you're watching it, and they deliver it pretty darn strongly. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's the strength of the interaction of these amazing actors. I mean, you've got so much star power here and so much experience that they're able to play off each other. And even the actors that will go on to be amazing that are young in this movie are leveled up by the other people around them and the script, and the fact that it's so precise. Like, there's not a lot of ad-libbing. Every action is scripted in a Mamet movie, and it's just so well put together that the whole thing is amazing. And the rapid fire dialogue always keeps you interested, and you don't have that second to look away and do something else because it's all there in your face all the time.
Yeah.
And so good.
Is there anything about this movie that does not work for you?
Boy, I can't think of anything. I mean, to say, well, I don't feel good at the end of it, that doesn't mean that the movie didn't do its job. I think the movie did its job. So I wouldn't say that. I can't say that I'm going to be watching this one like every year just because it's a bit of a downer, but it's an amazing show. I mean, and I say I wouldn't watch it, but man, I might still pull it up on YouTube every once in a while and watch Pacino's part why can't I think of his name? Grumpy Old Men.
Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon. I mean, obviously the Alec Baldwin monologue, like all that stuff. Yeah, because it's just fun watching those guys bust a move like that. It's incredible. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I guess I didn't answer the question. I answered another question because I don't have an answer to your question. I didn't find anything that didn't work.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if anything didn't work, it would be there's so much talking about the leads. I feel like maybe they hit that too much. Mm-hmm. And we could have gotten a little more character, a little more about everybody. But I don't think that's the point of the movie. But if you're talking about just things that I might have been looking for, that might be it.
Here, I'll throw this out there. You know, it's funny for me I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. The language. I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, the story in and of itself, like, well, I don't know. I'd say if you could show it to a younger audience, but then would a younger audience be fascinated by this?
That's a fair point.
So I don't know. I go back and forth on that. Like, I mean, I could see people that were going to do the school musical or a play or like, guys, you got to study this. These guys are at the top of their craft. Check this out. Here's how you talk down to someone. Here's how you play, you know. But then that being said, like, would 14-year-old me be enthralled by this movie? You know, I'd be like, okay, that, you know. So I don't know. I say that, but I don't know. You start armchair. For me, something this awesome, I start armchair cornerbacking it. All you're going to do is mess it up. So yeah, I'll retract my statement.
I feel like if you were going to watch a movie that was about sales or about kind of having some kind of a hustle that you got going, you know, this is not one I probably would share as a motivational movie for something like that. I mean, it's got some great scenes and it's got some of the great lines, but I'm thinking of other stuff like, would you show this one, or would you show Wolf of Wall Street? Would you show Wall Street? Would you show The Found? I'm just trying to think of some other movies that are kind of related to the idea of sales and of trying to, you know, broker deals and things like that. And I think this one, I don't think you show this one as a motivational one. I think you show this as the kind of like the broken side of things. It goes back to that idea of desperation, and that's really what this movie is all about, is the desperation of it. It doesn't glorify any of this at all. Like, watching this movie does not make me want to go be a salesperson.
Yeah, no.
No, it shows you the dark side of it, the cutthroat side of it, the desperation.
Yeah.
Well, it seems borderline a con job, right? Like, they're not.
Oh yeah, they're full of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing, is it's not like...
Okay, not to interrupt, but is it a con job, or are they selling real property that's just crap? I mean, I guess that's a con job in itself, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the blunt instrument. Like, that's just splitting hairs. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like... Right, so how can I say this? If you look at our one of our favorite shows that we follow, the Shirley podcast, they did Goodfellas and Godfather, right? If the Godfather movie follows like the higher ups in the mafia, right? Like the top guys, the heads of the family and all that, Goodfellas seems to focus a little bit more on like the semi-made guys, the guys out on the street, all that kind of thing. If you take this and compare it to John's example, like Wolf of Wall Street seems to focus on the guys that are at like the absolute top of the whole thing. Now, I know it's completely different. I don't even know if this reference would make sense. This seems to focus a little bit more on the guys that aren't like at the very top cruising around in yachts you know, in crashing their helicopters and all that kind of stuff. This focuses maybe on the guys that are more having to grind it out for them. Maybe, I don't know. Because again, I don't know how much of this world is accurate and how much of this world is fictional.
Well,
right?
these guys are fighting over a car and some steak knives.
Yeah. So I don't even know what my point was when I brought all that up. But I think the movies, they show different aspects, whether it's fictional or real or what, which I know Wolf of Wall Street was based on a real story. But these guys are just kind of lower on the totem pole. They're just trying to grind it out. Right.
Right.
But that's the thing I ask is I don't want to sound like Martin Sheen in Wall Street, but it's just kind of like, get out and build something with your hands. You know, like I don't know how does this help society? And not to say that every job is going to do it, but I mean, if they're trying to get people and just pursuing that check so bad, like with such fervor, with such frenzy, to the point that they're, well, really, that's kind of what Al Pacino, he was doing some quick double talk to try and convince that guy to, no, don't talk to your, you know, it's just kind of like, man, there'd be red flags all over that. So
it's either, even if you're Shelley Levine from back in the day, or you're Richard Roma now, you're the top dog at this office, you're still a con man.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, regardless of how good you are at it. And they're all kind of like jockeying with each other and trying to one up each other and like, well, this is how good I am. Like, look at me. Like, when Roma lays into Williamson after he kind of does that whole thing of, oh, don't worry, Mr. Link, we cashed your check. You know, and he messes up his whole deal. And then all of a sudden, Al Pacino, I can't even play the clip because it would just be beep, 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 one beep after another. We would lose our family-friendly status here. But that whole scene where Al Pacino just starts laying into him, I'm like,
oh yeah, and the look, his look on his face is just amazing.
Yeah,
is amazing. And not to just count out Kevin Spacey, the way Kevin Spacey responds. The way that scene is structured is just amazing.
Well, and then when you find out later that Kevin Spacey was lying.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he did it on purpose. Like he torpedoed the deal on purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's cold. Because then Shelley reveals that later on. He's like, I know you didn't cash that check. I saw it on your desk when I went to go steal all the deals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, this is like really cutthroat.
It's nasty stuff, man.
This guy's just nasty. No. The one thing it does make me want to do, it makes me want to go back and watch Mad Men again.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. There are moments, and I think Mamet does a really good job of this in his writing, you know, and obviously the way that the director got the performances out of everybody too, but even if these guys are pretty terrible people, I think to a single person, you know, what they're doing, they're not great people. They are pretty morally bankrupt people. Mm-hmm. There are still times where we do sympathize with them.
Mm-hmm.
So can you pick out any times in particular where you really kind of started to, and I think we do for each of these characters in different ways and at different times. Can you think of times where one of the characters you were like, dude, that guy's a terrible person, but then you had a moment of, yeah, but I also feel sorry for him. Like I sympathize for this guy even though he's morally bankrupt.
Well, I think here that Jack Lemmon's character had the sick child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think you do start to feel a little bit for Al Pacino when he loses that deal at the end there. But only a little, because as you point out, they are as morally bankrupt as they come.
Well, and even to a certain degree, like Ed Harris's character, even though he's the one that comes up with the idea for stealing the leads.
Right.
There's a little bit of, in some of his reasoning for stealing those leads, there's a little, as I'm watching that, I'm sitting there going, all right, so there are times and moments in jobs I've had before where I felt like I was stuck with no opportunity to advance and somebody is holding me back from being able to reach my potential in what it is that I'm doing here. and I got to do something or I got to get out. And so even though the stealing the leads, I'm like, all right, well, that's not the right way to do that. But as he's kind of talking about what frustrates him about being in that office, I'm listening to that and I'm going, all right, I get that. I understand that. That's not the way I would go about fixing it, but I get it.
Right.
I get what you're feeling. I smell what The Rock is cooking.
Oh yeah. And I think the Jack Lemmon character is sympathetic too, because he's kind of past his prime.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's past his prime, and
a guy who held on a little too long, maybe.
Right. And at a place, not that you want to walk into your place of employment and expect the warm and fuzzies and the family and the whole thing. You wish that there would be some respect where, hey, good places to work, treat folks like that with respect, either helping them through, giving them a bridge, which maybe that was what Al Pacino was trying, right? I mean, so maybe there was a little bit of that there, but that kind of stuff has to come from leadership as well. Like, hey, let's take care of these people. And, in
the education world, we tend to have our retirement parties at the end of every school year for the people that are retiring. And we'll miss them, but it's a celebration. It's all that. There is no way to gracefully retire in an office like this.
No,
you just, at some point, you're either old enough or not as skilled as the 2 or 3 people ahead of you that you're not going to be first or second place. You're going to be third place or lower. And that's how you leave.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's vicious. It's just, as you guys said before, it's very cutthroat. It's
to what benefit?
Right.
Right.
It's not benefiting anybody other than the company making money off of this. And it's really Alec Baldwin's character that's making the money. It's not really any of these guys. They're fighting over a Cadillac and steak knives.
So, and that's where it comes back to, like I said, the Martin Sheen quote from Wall Street. Thank you. Get out there and build something. Yeah. Let's see them build a company. Let's see them build this company up. Now, well, we don't want to see it because they're scamming people and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But like I said, like the whole thing, I don't know. And I don't know how much we're supposed to get into a deep discussion of everything that's wrong, because there really doesn't seem to be any rebuttal to it all. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? There doesn't seem to, but if you look at it like this is where there really isn't any of that. So I think the thing that drives it is just the dialogue and the acting and that's what makes this enthralling. I don't personally feel caught up in any, conundrum where I've got to which one is right? The lesser of two evils. I just don't see it like that,
Right.
So one of the questions we typically tend to kind of wrap up with before we get into our 3 questions is, if this movie, talking about does the movie hold up 30 years later? Mm. If this movie was released in theaters today, what would be the reason you would go see it? Honestly, for me, I think it's the ensemble cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between the cast.
If I saw a movie that had, even with his controversies, Kevin Spacey, Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Ed Harris, Jonathan Pryce, this whole cast, if I saw those guys were going to be together in a movie, that probably would be what would draw me in.
Yeah. That on top of Mamet's writing.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's pretty good.
And I think it's an easy question to say, does it hold up 30 years later? Because other than, and not even necessarily that, other than the phone technology, you could really place this in any time, and I think it would still be applicable.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you'd have to update it to the current technology and whatever people are selling in that day.
Right.
Well, if it came out, what would have been? When was the subprime mortgage meltdown? I mean,
very good.
I mean, I got to be honest. I think that might hit pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
2009.
9, yeah, somewhere around there. But I don't. I'll tell you, there's been some times right around that time when Tammy and I were buying a house, getting started, like there were some conversations that I walked out of, and it was like, you kind of learn that, and I mean, everybody listening out there, I'm so terribly sorry, but like you kind of learned that folks that are like selling in that aren't necessarily your friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's interesting because I think a lot of that, I don't want to necessarily say it's the old world, but that's kind of a generational thing. Like there's some my parents' generation and all that. And I know that my brother has sometimes butted heads in conversations when he would converse with my parents and all that kind of thing. When it was an interesting mindset where they try to be friends with the salesman or try to get to know him. And, I think he's a good guy. There was that kind of thing. And a lot of this stuff, it was the horse trading thing. And, and that sometimes that can be a hard lesson when you walk in and you realize, wow, whether they're trying to, broker a mortgage loan or sell a car or, getting into investing, all those types of things. It's just like, yeah, those folks aren't necessarily, they're not your friends,
right?
Right.
Well, and I want to make sure, like from some stuff I said earlier too, I want to make sure that like nobody listening to our show thinks that we are like down on salespeople, because there's several jobs that I've worked where and that's actually going to be I think it's one of our 3 questions. There are several jobs that I worked where I was working kind of a sales position, and you can absolutely totally have people that are in. I think sometimes salespeople will get a bad rap, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Pat. But I think sometimes salespeople get a bad rap because it might seem like they're just in it for themselves. But I think you can totally have, and I think this is kind of what you were kind of getting towards, is you can have people that are in sales positions for good reasons. Like I know some of the jobs that I worked, I felt better about those places that I was working because while I was selling something and it was my job and ultimately a benefit to me, the more I sold, I was also selling things that I knew would benefit people's lives, or were something good would come of it for them as well. And it happened to be the job I was working. So of course I'm also going to get paid too. So I don't want to, I know I said some stuff earlier. I didn't want to make that come across as like all salespeople are crooked and all salespeople are morally bankrupt. I think we see in this movie an example of people who, pretty much everyone in this is fairly morally bankrupt. Even Shelley with the sick daughter, he's still gonna put him and his first. He'll cut some kind of a deal that screws someone else over as long as he can get the money, which then will help benefit him and his sick daughter and his family and all that. But I think this movie shows us the dark side of all of that.
Yes.
But there's absolutely places and times where people are going to be in this job for the right reasons.
Sure. And I mean, like, that's yes, exactly. And I
made some comments earlier, and I was like, I don't want anybody to think that I'm hating on salespeople.
Right. It's easy to like, and again, I don't feel like I'm
Robin
backpedaling.
Williams is like Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire. I don't pick on the salespeople because I used to be one.
Right. And I don't want to be like I said, I don't want to be like backpedaling and all that kind of thing because but exactly within the construct of what we've seen in this movie.
Right.
That's kind of what we're commenting on. But you're exactly right. Like anything, there's good teachers, there's bad teachers, there's good, I mean, like there, and
which are a bad witch.
Exactly. And
I want a
think,
sandwich. Sorry.
And yeah, so I mean, yeah, exactly what you said. And it's just, you kind of have to, yeah, exactly what you said. I'm not going to add any words into it that are going to be more eloquent than yours, but yes, exactly. I do not mean to by any stretch of the imagination, I don't mean to make a blanket statement.
On the other hand, though, Bo hates all salesmen. So Pat
why not?
Pat and I have made our statements. Bo hates everyone. On that, no, you don't. Bo loves everybody.
Love Fest, man.
That's right. That's your nickname, Love Fest. All right. Do we got anything else before we jump into our 3 questions?
Fantastic movie, better than I could have expected seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you like Mamet's style of writing, and I mean, just the ensemble cast alone, you got to give this one at least one viewing. All right. It is time for the Always Be Asking. ABA 3 ? Always be, I don't know. It's 3 questions.
That's deep.
I added punctuation, so now I feel like we've taken it to a new level. There were numbers and there was punctuation, and I don't even know.
I was told there would be no math.
Thank you, sir.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. 3 questions. That line from My Cousin Vinny that's in there, we had kind of a funny text exchange between my wife and I this morning because she had to go in for jury duty.
Oh, okay.
So she got there safely, and she texting us to let us know that she was like in the waiting room and waiting to see if she was going to get called for some of those. And so I texted her this morning and I said, hey, just remember, Chevy didn't make a 327 in 55. The 327 didn't come out till 62. So
as long as you remember that, you're covered.
Remember that, because otherwise it's a trick question, and you don't want to get caught with those trick questions. All right. Question number 1. Again, thank you to Mr. Bo Warmbold for providing our 3 questions this time.
Yeah.
No pressure or anything.
Sponsorship for the 3 questions is brought to you by Bo Warmbold. Love Fest. Thank you. All right.
You are welcome, gentlemen. Anytime.
Question number 1. Have you ever sold anything? Like Cutco, newspapers, anything like that? Have you ever had a job where you were selling something?
I only worked, the closest I could say is like working retail, which I think is a slightly different thing than what we're talking here. So,
but it's not selling though.
Yeah.
No. Checking my double negatives there, but I think I'm right.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Two wrongs make a right, I think.
Somewhere.
Or 2 lefts or something like that.
I was going to say, the question really isn't the right, it's the left, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on the retail. I mean, were you working like a cash register? Were you actively selling things?
No, actually, so I worked on a farm. My first job, I worked on a farm, started in 7th grade and worked all the way up through high school on a farm. And actually so most of it was like working on a farm stand, in the farm stand and cash register, but then you'd get to go out and like sweep barns and all that kind of fun, exciting things. But like, I also worked in the winters. They sold Christmas trees. So I never really got to like cut a deal. Like, I don't think they gave the 12-year-old kid the ability to, I'll knock that price down. All that. Like, we never got that. We did get to use the chainsaw if they wanted a fresh cut on the bottom. And we did get to tie it. I got some stories about tying Christmas trees to roofs and various other.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I did. We did tie a guy's doors shut one time. We had to fix that one. But
everybody's done it. I've done it on my own car.
Oh, yeah. I know, man.
What?
I always loved, the favorite customer was the one that had the pickup truck and asked for the fresh cut on the bottom, because then ain't nothing going to get tied down. And I got to use the chainsaw. Anyways, but that one was a little bit like, so what do you recommend? Well, sir, I can tell you, we got Fraser first, we got Balsam first, we got Douglas first. Here's the cop. You kind of had to like talk to them a little bit about like that whole thing. And I mean,
you gotta watch out for those balsams. Those are the trees where all the needles fall off.
No. Yeah. No, that's in balsams. No, and it really was kind of like, and I just said, look, here's what I know, Douglas firs. And anyways, I won't go into the whole spiel, because we also had pines, and that was we had a couple of different pines. It all depends on the experience you want. But again, like, no, I would have that. And so I guess you had to do a little bit.
Okay.
You had to do it. There was one funny story when I was working in the farm stand. The line was like out the door, and it was like the Oktoberfest thing. So everyone was, and they came up, they sold birdhouse gourds. and they came up and they were just like, this lady's like, excuse me, I was wondering if you could tell me what's the best way to prepare the birdhouse gourd. And the way they said prepare, like I'm triggered into like cooking. And I think I was in high school, man. I was like 15 or 16. And they're like the birdhouse gourds. And I'm not even the thing. My mom was working next to me. My God, I can't even say this without laughing. The owners of the farm still bust me up about this one. And I deserved it. I'm just like, I don't know. And there was like a line going out the door. Excuse me, can you tell me the best way to prepare the birdhouse gourds? And I'm like, I don't know. Have you tried stir frying?
Good God.
And she goes, no, I think I'm going to make a birdhouse out of it, but thanks anyway. I'm just like, all right, and I didn't even process it. Meanwhile, my good friend, she's in high school too, is working next to me. She has disappeared because she's like, and she leans over to my mom. She goes, Miss Cannigal, you never believe what Pat just said. He told some lady.
She looked at her and said, oh, I believe it.
Oh my God. And then it went like on the radio, like everybody around, like the entire farm knew. And they such good family friends, and they showed up at my mom's funeral and wake and all that kind of stuff. And the one lady, the one owner came up, she goes, I still tell the story. You've become part of the training video for the new kid. She said, now, if you ever get a question that you don't know the answer to, I'm just like, I know, oh my gosh. So we're going to call this the Pat rule. If you ever get a question you don't know the answer to, just ask.
That's
because so anyways, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my own jokes, but my God, that just busts me up inside when the lady's like, how do you prepare this?
Absolutely outstanding.
I think I don't know, I would try stir frying the gourd.
Today on Pat's cooking show,
we're gonna stir fry some gourds.
Today's segment is called Oh My Gourd, and we're gonna show you how to prepare treehouse gourds or birdhouse gourds. Well, treehouse, that'd be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's
some gourd you've got there.
You see that one, you're going to be saying, oh my gourd.
I'm just saying, it would have been, if they would have been asking about okra, if they would have been, well, not stir frying, but frying, if they would have been asking about the patapans, if they would have been asking about the squash, I would have, okay. I thought they said squash, all right? So that's a different thing. But I guess the Christmas trees, I got a little taste of it, but yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. That's my experience.
Yeah, I had
outstanding.
I had some salesy jobs. I worked a couple of different retail jobs, which not really very much salesy stuff. You know, a lot of times it's just you're at the register and you're kind of dealing with everything there. But I did have a couple here and there that were. One of my first jobs was working at the stock room in the back of a Sears. And I was getting kind of bored back there, and I didn't particularly care for the manager of the stockroom. But what I really did kind of get interested in was I had kind of become friends with a couple of the guys that were working in the electronics and the TV section, and they worked on commission. And I was like, that could be kind of fun. And so I remember applying to get one of those jobs, but at that point I was too young. Like I was like, 17 at the time. And they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to hire a 17-year-old to do this. I'm like, well, all right.
Okay.
Fine then. I'm going to take my ball and go home. So, no, probably my favorite one of the only retail jobs that I actually enjoyed. Well, a couple of them really. I did work at a bookstore, and that one was kind of fun. Like there's no like pressure to like make sales. You're not working on commission or anything like that. In fact, I don't think any of the jobs I ever had, I never worked on any kind of commission. But the bookstore was kind of fun because people would come in and they'd ask you for recommendations, and you can talk to them about this and that, and help them find something they're looking for. And then working at the Apple store, like that was a lot of fun. There was being able to, because they kind of teach you when you go in there. They're like, look, are we selling things to people? Yes, we're selling things to people. But frankly, we're Apple. If somebody walks into our store, they already want to buy something we've got. So it's not like a hard sell. You just, when people come in, find out what it is that they want. Like find out what it is they're trying to do, what's going to benefit them, and then show them some options. Like show them, hey, this is what you want to do something with photography. Here are the things that we have that can help you do whatever it is you want to do with photography. You want to start producing your own music? Here are the things that we've got that can help you. This would be the best computer for producing your own music and stuff like that. So it wasn't like that was one of those jobs where like I didn't feel like I needed to take a shower at the end of each day because I had conned somebody into buying something they didn't really need. It was one of those. It was one of those deals of, you know, this is my job, and I will show you here what it is that will help get you to wherever it is that you want to be, and it's up to you if you want to buy it or not. And so it was very much kind of a no pressure kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it for me. Just a couple of different times where I was in kind of a salesy type job. What about you, Bo?
Never as a job so much, oddly enough, but I did volunteer for a local church. They did a big summer festival every year back in the day, and they sold those old ad books you used to get at those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was selling ad space in that ad book and getting the copy from people and then putting it all together, and then we would actually self-published there, which was kind of cool. They had the whole printing press downstairs and everything. So yeah, I sold ad space for a little while, sort of.
I remember doing that a little bit with like the high school newspaper. We'd like had to go get some advertising from some of the local businesses and things like that.
Makes sense.
John is funny. When he was on was it for baseball? Yeah, it was for baseball. They had to sell one of those like coupon books.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And so there were some times, and I think he really enjoyed doing it. And so there were some times where I would drive him to a different neighborhood where some of his buddies wouldn't have necessarily strayed too far because a lot of them were freshmen or sophomores. So I'd drive him out to another neighborhood that somebody probably hadn't hit up yet, and he'd take his stuff and he'd go door to door and he'd sell several of them. He actually sold them pretty quickly. But he was funny because then he'd kind of joke with me. He's like, man, every time, like, I think old ladies love me. Because every time I go to a house and it's like an older lady like living there, they always buy stuff from me. And I said, I don't know. I mean, you're a handsome 14-year-old guy. I mean, maybe the old ladies think you're kind of cute. And I said, do you want me to? I can drive you. There's like a senior living place over here. Do you want me to drive you over there and see if we can knock out the rest of your coupon books in one night? And he's like, I don't know. That's probably not a bad idea. I'm like, no, I'm not driving you over there. Go sell whatever you got to sell and let's get home.
That's outstanding.
But he's kind of convinced that he's got an age bracket that will always buy from him.
There it is. Well,
he may not be wrong. I mean,
he's got his angle.
At this point, he's probably not wrong.
They just want to pinch his cheeks, you know?
Right. And I told him, I said, there's a finite amount of time where that's going to work for you.
Right. So milk it.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Lord knows we all wish we had back in the day, right? Now look at us.
At 41, I can't go do that now and have it
No.
That's a little different.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy at that point. The creep can roll, man. The creep can roll.
The creep can roll.
What is your question number 2? What's your favorite go-to coffee drink? I can answer this one real easily because I don't like coffee.
There you go.
So mine is a favorite go away coffee drink. In fact, my child that I just was speaking of, John, he is now very much the only coffee drinker in the family, and he does love what did he tell me? Usually when I ask the family the 3 questions before we record when we're having dinner, normally his response to everything is like, I don't know. But I asked him this question tonight. I'm like, what's your go-to coffee drink? His head shot up and he's like, oh man, I got so many. And he's like, it's the most I've heard the kid talk in a long time. His was iced caramel latte is his favorite. Right
Oh, there you go.
So,
Respectable.
So he even had me try one time. And I think the face I made is, I'm just not a coffee drinker. Let's put it this way. I made more of a Malort face when I drank coffie. Than I did upon drinking Malort for the first time.
Interesting.
So mine would be tea or hot chocolate. It would not be coffee. But
interesting.
You guys coffee drinkers?
I am.
What's your go-to?
And I go back and forth. This will not surprise. I go back and forth on this one a lot. But I think if I had to lock into one, it would be an iced blonde vanilla latte.
Okay.
Ooh.
It's very good. It's a little too much sugar than I should probably have on a regular basis. So I will admit that my regular is much simpler than that.
You're such a gentleman. I've heard gentlemen prefer blondes.
What is your more go-to
Oh, my regular is a simple cold brew, black. Big as you can sell it to me.
All right. All right.
Considering, as I think we have mentioned, as some of us near our older ages, we have pills and things we have to take that preclude other things. Black coffee is where I have to draw the line these days.
All right. There it is.
Patrick, are you a coffee drinker?
No, my coffee drink is water, but I'll take
there
it
you
cold, warm, neat, rocks.
Okay.
I'm kind of good with it all.
All right.
There you go.
So Bo is A, B, C. Always bring coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
We hired a new guy in May, so he's only been with us a couple months, but he's like my coffee buddy. Like he drinks, I think I drink a lot of coffee. I ain't got nothing on this guy. He's easy 2 large from Dunkin' Donuts a day.
Oh, really?
1 on his way in, and then I'm not sure he does it every day, but it sure seems like he goes out to lunch.
Yeah.
Even when he does it, even when he brings lunch, he'll run out and get coffee.
Oh,
like all
It's
the
outstanding.
time.
Yeah.
It's outstanding.
I'm impressed and frightened for him all at the same time.
Yeah.
Because that is a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
Like at some point, like, wow. I mean, I'm impressed in my own way. But
well, you know when he starts talking like the micro machines guy.
Well, that's when you run.
Yeah.
You just run.
Yeah. All right, and question number 3, what is your favorite Mammoth movie? This is an easy one for me.
Well, then please.
The Untouchables.
Yeah, I figured.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like a lot of his other movies, but that one, hands down, I gotta go Untouchables.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of making it the daily double or the daily triple, even, I would say The Untouchables. Yeah. At the interest of trying to get another film out there, I really like Ronin.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
I like a lot of his work. I do have to think The Untouchables is definitely top. But I'll tell you, after seeing this for the first time, I like this one.
This is good.
You know, it's solid. It's very, like, this is very Mammoth. Like, the dialogue's jumping on top of each other. Like, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a little known one that he did in 2000 called State and Maine. It is a very strange movie.
Okay. I've heard
but
of it.
It is very fun.
I haven't seen it, though.
And again, kind of like this cast, it's a little crazy. Like, Alec Baldwin's in it.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, William H. Macy. Maybe Alec Baldwin's not in that one. But Clark Gregg, Julia Stiles, like, it's another one where you're like, wow, all these people got together to make this movie. And I would swear Alec Baldwin's in it, but maybe I'm crazy. And it's probably because David Mamet picked up the phone and said, hey, guys, I want to do this movie, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is in it. That's so weird. I'm not wrong. But I'm looking at the cast list on IMDb.
I'm not seeing him in there.
No, but if you look at the picture, look at that second picture.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. He's in that scene. Huh. That's Alec Baldwin and David Mamet as he's directing the movie.
Yeah.
IMDb, go home. You're drunk.
Yeah.
I knew he was in that movie.
Huh.
I love that movie.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I don't know. I can't rank it above The Untouchables, but I gotta put it up there as an honorable mention. It is a solid Mamet. It's twisted. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's good. Like, every once in a while, I like a good twisted tale.
Well, and my lovely wife was always a political science major in college and everything, so we did enjoy Wag the Dog when that one came out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It took me years to get around to showing that to my wife, and she loved it too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just, and it was so funny. Like, she's watching it for the first time. She's like, "Oh my god." Oh my god. I'm like, yeah. Kind of spooky when you think about it like that, ain't it?
Yep. Good old shoe.
Yeah. That was a fun one. I gotta watch that one again sometime. Yeah. No. So many good movies. Hard to narrow it down, but yeah, I definitely gotta go with Untouchables.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gents. That's it. That's it for Glenlivet Glen on the rocks. We made it through, and I don't think I butchered too many words.
No, we're good.
So I think we did fine.
We're all fine here. Thanks.
I was able to close this one out, so I guess I can go have some coffee, but I don't like it, so I'll go get something else. A tall glass of water. Tall glass of ice water. That's what I'll do. This has been...
You're a tall glass of ice water.
Tall drink of water over there. Only if you're 14 and the ladies are octogenarians. So we got coming up our next several episodes. Again, there's a finite amount of time that works. Next several episodes for the month of August, our Patreon episodes. I think I can announce one of these here. Jeffrey Mazuka and I had been kind of working together on maybe having him join me for some of the Patreon shorts, since his time has been limited a little bit, and so he wanted to get in on some of these but didn't necessarily have the time to jump into a full recording with us. So I think Jeff and I are going to do one of the Patreon shorts for this month on the animated movie The Secret of Nim from 1982.
Oh, very cool.
So we're going to see how we can keep that down to about 15, 20 minutes. Might not happen, but...
I was going to say, that's a challenge with that movie.
It's going to...
Because it is deceptively deep.
Yeah. So we're going to have
Love that movie.
We're going to have to, I don't know, either talk fast or something. I don't know. The other Patreon short for this month is Creep Show from 1982. Love that one.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun. And then there's another little Patreon episode that's coming out this month. Pat, would you like to share what that one's about?
It's about motorcycles movies. Mm-hmm. Movies with motorcycles, motorcycle movies, motorcycle riders in movies, all that kind of great stuff, man.
Motorcycle stunts in movies.
Motorcycle stunts in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is there a rubric for those of us that...
There is. I'll share out the list with you of kind of our topics that we're looking
Sweet.
for. There's like...
That's all I need. I just need a little something.
Favorite 2 of these, favorite 3 of these, that kind of
Sure.
thing. Yeah. I'll send that to you. Pat and I were kind of texting a little bit back and forth to kind of nail that down. And I think not only... I was just texting to Pat the other day to get his approval on the topics. And not only did I get approval, I got his responses texted back to me already. So...
Yeah, man.
Oh, there you go.
Pat doesn't mess around with this kind of stuff.
And I wasn't I wasn't sure because there were a couple questions. I'm like, how are we interpreting this? Because here are my 2 answers if it's this question. Yeah. Here are my 2 answers if it's this question. And if we're going to end up asking both questions, now you have all 4 answers. So there you go.
Right. So. All right. For the rest of August, we've got next week is Captain Ron. The week after that is Wayne's World. Week after that is White Men Can't. And then moving on into September. I don't think we've announced any of the September ones yet. So this is what we got coming up for next month in September. Our Patreon episodes, Patreon shorts that'll come out in September. Q, the Winged Serpent. Such a great, ridiculous kind of monster B-movie kind of a thing. Cat People from 1982. And our main Patreon episode is going to be The Dark Crystal from 1982.
Nice.
So a lot of 82 stuff we're catching on the Patreon side of things. Our regular episodes for the month of September, this is going to be some fun stuff. Our first episode of September will be Medicine Man.
Nice.
Our second episode in September will be because it's hitting its 40th anniversary, and we're going to have one of our Patreon co-executive producers joining us for that one. Fingers crossed, I believe. Will be Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
And oh man, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. But then after that, Lorenzo's Oil, Forever Young, and Death Becomes Her.
Outstanding.
So we have got some good stuff coming out here over the next few weeks or so. Gentlemen, Bo, Pat, I always have fun talking movies with you guys.
Great talking to you too, John.
Yeah, John, thank you.
Everybody.
Good to see you, Bo, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, listeners. Thank you, Patreon co-executive producers. We look forward each and every week to just chatting up some movies and having a good time. So we're glad that you're able to join us here each week and join us for a little bit of extra stuff over there on Patreon if you'd like to. Otherwise, everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Go watch this one if you haven't seen it. Glenlivet, Glen Ross is what it's called.
Maybe pour yourself some Glenlivet in the process.
While you're watching it. Yeah.
Have a little fun with it. Why not?
Absolutely. All right. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time.